understand, and that is the effect of carnosine on heart function. Let's talk a little bit about carnosine. So this is a figure from a article that's in the medical literature of all the things that carnosine can accomplish. So what is carnosine? Carnosine is a very simple protein. It's the combination of 2 amino acids, so a very small protein that is diffuse throughout the body. And carnosine is involved in all sorts of functions in the body. It is involved in energy metabolism, facilitating mitochondrial function. It modulates the immune system. It protects you against toxicity from different toxic proteins in the body. It prevents cancer tumor cells. It increases tumor senescence, so it tends to turn tumors off. It mops up free radicals. It helps you clear heavy metals. It does tumor anti-angiogenesis, rejuvenation of senescent proteins. All of these things are recognized to be accomplished by this very important protein in our molecule that is known as carnosine. So we have one of the LifeWave patches is of course named carnosine, and that patch will rev up the activity of this carnosine molecule, which has all of these effects throughout the body. So no wonder with carnosine that we talk about anti-cancer effects. Again, unproven that the patch can do it, but we know this molecule is involved in that. Suppression of tumors, improvement in energy, reduction of inflammation, chelation of heavy metals, and detox. We can think that we're helping our bodies accomplish all of these things by enhancing the activity of the carnosine that's already in our bodies. Again, we don't have to supplement on this, scoop it onto our cereal or what have you. It's in our bodies. We're simply enhancing the activity of that endogenous compound. So this would be the intro for the folks at American Heart. There is a field in cardiology called cardiac optogenetics. It's basic science, but what they're trying to do is they're trying to genetically modify cells in the body to express light-sensitive proteins, like you might find in a firefly or in a glowfish. And then once you've done that, perhaps you could artificially shine light into the body to activate those proteins and accomplish physiologic effects. So this is very much the basic science stage of investigation, but it is a field in cardiology that most heart rhythm specialists at least know about, because there are sessions about this topic at our annual meetings. So my jumping off spot for LifeWave is to say, hey, we know that optogenetics is a real thing. Well, here we have a very interesting technology that says you already have light-sensitive proteins in your body. Your body is a flashlight. It generates its own light. We can use your own light to activate the light-sensitive proteins that are already in your body in a way that has beneficial biologic effects. So why not try it? So we know the LifeWave patches, they're very natural. They can contain a plant-based amino acid, some oxygen, some sugar, some salt, other natural organic compounds that forms a crystal that's in the patch that is able to reflect back light of certain frequencies. So again, nothing's going into your body. You are taking advantage of the light that your body emits to reflect back into the body, which then is able to activate light-sensitive proteins and that are already in your body in a way that can influence your metabolic activity for health benefits. So LifeWave is a subset of the developing field of cardiac optogenetics. And for me, that makes it a very legitimate tool and places it within the field of basic science cardiology very nicely. And that's the approach I would use to talk to the folks at American Heart and to discuss with my colleagues, for example. So our hypothesis is that a cutaneous phototherapy device known to stimulate carnosine activity may enhance myocardial performance as determined by echocardiographic indices of heart function. So in cardiology, we perform ultrasounds of the heart all the time. Ultrasounds are a great study because they give you a tremendous amount of information and there's no radiation that's imparted to the patient. It's all ultrasound energy like we use for babies, for example. So for research purposes, we recruited healthy volunteers, 32 subjects, age 42 to 85, nice blend of male and female. And for the purposes of research, we would plaster carnosine patches over the heart. So over your left thorax here, where we know that the heart sits, wrapping right around into the axilla, because a lot of the heart is deep in your body. We want to completely surround that organ and flood the organ with carnosine activation to the full extent that it was possible. Again, for the purposes of research, you don't have to do this at home, and I'm not sure it'd be wise to anyway, but we wanted to really see if we could elicit a meaningful biologic effect by saturating the carnosine mechanism. So then we would perform an echocardiogram of the heart, ultrasound of the heart, measuring the function, the tissue velocities, rates of blood flow across the valves, both at baseline and then again 30 minutes, 20 to 30 minutes after applying the patches. So here's a representative example of a test subject, and those are all carnosine patches from the sternum right around to the axilla. Everything there is carnosine, and I can tell you about the story about how we came to this protocol as well. At first it was like, we're going to use energy enhancers everywhere. Let's put on some Eon, let's put on some X39, and the heart function actually went down, and had to think about that for a long time. But what I think happened is that the patches were relaxing all of the peripheral vasculature. And when the peripheral vasculature all relaxes, the heart at rest says, I don't have to work as hard to maintain this. So it actually was beating a little bit less forcefully because we had lowered all of the peripheral resistance. So that's probably what was going on in those studies. It's more exciting when you can improve the function of the heart. And that switched us to finally discovering this carnosine protocol where we're saying we're just going to use one patch. It's going to be carnosine. It's going to be lots of carnosine. It's going to be right around the heart. And let's see what change that has. So here's a representative measure. And I'll show you videos of this in a sec. But these are the kinds of measurements. This is your left ventricle, the main pumping chamber of your heart, your right ventricle, right atrium, left atrium. And we measure the squeeze function. So how much the main pumping chamber collapses per heartbeat. Here, 70%. Very nice and normal. Different measures, 77% with a different measurement technique, then apply the carnosine patches, and 30 minutes later, that 70% has gone up to 78%, and this 77% up to 82%. So wow, the heart was in fact making a more vigorous squeeze in the presence of the carnosine patches. Here is one of our healthy volunteers. This is a 54-year-old woman, and I'll try to run these movies side by side so you can compare them. But there you have the function at baseline and in the presence of carnosine. That's a video of the left ventricle. So that cavity is the left ventricle, and the amount that it empties will tell you is the overall squeeze function. So I think you can see on the carnosine where some white, very echo-intensive structures on the side of the heart come much closer to each other. They're almost touching in the presence of carnosine, whereas they never quite get that close on our baseline images. And this is a 70-year-old man, and we measured a very large change for him from 62% up to 76%. That's a 14% change in his overall ejection fraction. And that is an astonishing result. Across 30 subjects, we could claim 6 to 8% improvement on average in ejection fraction, but some individuals were much greater than that. And very significant for cardiology in that 55% is the low end of normal. So if you're 55%, you're still normal. If your ejection fraction is as low as 35%, it's like you're going to die and we need to implant a defibrillator because your risk of sudden cardiac death justifies that you live the rest of your life with a defibrillator to protect you. So that's a 20-point spread, 35 to 55. And we use lots of drugs, lots of intervention, pharmaceuticals to try to tease up heart function when it's low. And every gain that we make is significant. Did you get it up by 5%? Did you get it up by 10%? It means everything to somebody in terms of their symptoms, in terms of their longevity. So to have that be your daily routine of titrating drugs for heart failure, for example, to then come in and see this result where we put stickers on your chest, no drugs or chemicals go into your body, and after 30 minutes, the pump function of your heart has gone up by 14%, and it's visibly obvious that that's the case. That result is astonishing. It's just astonishing. And that's the interest for American Heart Association. So that will be really fun to see how it's received in that particular forum. And of course, we made some average measurements, some statistical significance to prove that result overall. And again, we could claim 6 to 8% on average because some people had very small responses, kind of 2 to 3%, whereas other ones had these dramatic results that you could appreciate. I kind of skipped over this slide, but this is another example of from a 54-year-old woman. For example, one of our volunteers. Are you guys seeing this error message on the screen?
All I see on the screen is someone drew a green line on the right-hand side of your screen, and I don't know how to get that off of there.
You don't see this low system resources may affect audio quality? There, no. I think I killed it.
Nope, not at all. You're good.
There you go. So sorry, this is the 70-year-old man. That's the one I showed you. Somehow this is our 54-year-old gal. Just another example. The echo images are a little bit clearer here, but just look at the squeeze function of the baseline image compared to the carnosine image. Which heart looks more vigorous to you? And again, we measured her when we made all the technical measurements, kind of a 12% increase. But there, for me, it's readily apparent that the squeeze function, I thought I had these on continuous loop, but there you can see them together. Much more impressive in the carnosine arm of the study. Just remarkable. I mean, those pictures are 30 minutes apart in the same person. They haven't taken any medication. They haven't eaten. They haven't worked out. All they've done is laid there on the echo table. They've done nothing between these two studies except have these patches applied over their heart. So yeah, really just really a very compelling result with a whole host of implications for the field of cardiology. And so there's some of our average measurements. A few other things that we could measure is when the heart contracts, you can also measure with Doppler and echo the velocity of the muscle contraction. So does the muscle actually squeeze faster in the presence of the carnosine than at baseline? And we proved that, yes, that was the case along the interventricular septum, which separates the two major pumping chambers. So another echocardiographic index of function, here the tissue is moving at 6.5 centimeters per second at baseline, and then up to 7.31 centimeters per second in the presence of carnosine. So a nice improvement there. And then you think, well, if the tissue is contracting faster and if it's squeezing more, then you would expect the rates of blood flow through the heart to also be faster. And indeed, they were also faster. So here we can measure the rates of blood flow across the heart valves as the blood makes its way through that organ, for example. Whether that was in between the top and the bottom chambers or exiting out of the bottom chambers, we can measure the velocity of the actual blood flow crossing those valve structures before and after the application of the carnosine patches, noticing a statistically significant increase in blood flow velocities, which corroborates the measurements of the left ventricular ejection fraction, which are so powerful. So lots of blah blah for our friends at American Heart Association. 8% improvement in ejection fraction, 6 to 8% improvement overall with changes in tissue velocity and blood flow velocity. So we have a self-powered wearable device that enhances myocardial function and overall myocardial performance and overall heart function. And this indeed represents compelling therapy, perhaps for congestive heart failure at a future date. So I've done a lot of talking. Just to summarize what we've talked about here, we talked about biofield modulation. We saw that the Alavita patch can give you a cephalad or upwards, headwards shift in your dominant expression of energy, achieving overall chakra rebalance, increase your rates of vibration of the physiologic systems within your body while imposing an overall energetic stability for your overall expression. Arising from the human aura, for example. And then we looked at some wound healing examples that were very compelling. We saw improved strength, mobility, and sensation with the ice wave patch in the setting of pain and some tissue injury, 50% faster wound healing with the presence of X39 alone, and up to 500% faster healing with the combination of X39, carnosine, and glutathione. So very dramatic changes in healing rates, which is exciting. And then for our main event, the enhanced cardiac function brought about by the carnosine patches with an overall improvement of the left ventricular ejection fraction of 6 to 8%, a statistically significant result in a large cohort of individuals across both genders and a large age spectrum. And with that, improvements in tissue velocity and in mitral inflow blood flow velocities through the heart. So that's our research findings to date. Really exciting and so much fun, and looking forward to what comes next and how that's received by my colleagues at American Heart later next month.
Fantastic.